In 1987, New York's Kennedy Airport, Jack shared a final kiss goodbye with his girlfriend Kate as he was about to head to a prestigious securities firm in London for an internship, a life-changing opportunity. Despite Jack's reluctance, he could only comfort his girlfriend repeatedly, promising to return in a year. At that moment, Kate's sixth sense suddenly kicked in. She vaguely felt that if Jack boarded this plane, their futures would no longer intersect. Jack dismissed this as just a fleeting emotion from his girlfriend, continuously talking about their beautiful future and grand plans. But at that moment, Kate no longer cared about those things. She only wished to stay with Jack and give up the glamorous life they had planned. At that moment, Jack felt a sense of strangeness towards Kate, an estrangement of mature perspective from pure emotion, a disregard of reality for ideal love. But Jack had to set off. He had his own life principles to uphold. After that farewell at the airport, Jack and Kate never saw each other again. 13 years later, in New York. The first Christmas of the millennium was approaching, and Jack always handled compliments from his date the previous night with ease. Now, in middle age, Jack was mature, wealthy, witty, and composed. He never minded the fleeting romantic encounters. In his eyes, they were merely inconsequential embellishments in life. The penthouse apartment in Manhattan and expensive designer clothes always gave him unparalleled confidence. He would treat the security staff kindly and joke easily with the neighborhood socialites, enjoying the tranquility that belonged exclusively to the successful in his Ferrari. Since returning from his internship in London, Jack had spent 10 years helping Laxey Securities rise to become a new force on Wall Street, and he had been promoted from a grassroots employee to general manager. This was thanks to his sharp and efficient work style. In his world, work was always the top priority. Facing the impending largest merger in the pharmaceutical industry, Jack was extremely dissatisfied with his subordinate Alan's daydreaming during the meeting. To him, Christmas was merely an excuse for laziness. The warmth of family paled in comparison to the sense of achievement brought by career success. After the meeting, while colleagues rushed home for family reunions, Jack still had to deal with the messages left over from the meeting. Among them, a message from Kate instantly caught his attention. This former lover from 13 years ago had gradually faded from his memory. Colleague Julie couldn't believe that this workaholic had almost stepped into marriage. Jack candidly stated, "I just chose a path that no one dared to take, and that's why I am who I am today." At that moment, his boss, Laxey, walked into Jack's office, feeling pleased to have discovered this financial elite. The Jack before him resembled the young man who had once fought hard. After learning about the internal news from his boss, Jack immediately decided to hold an emergency meeting the next day. Christmas was never an option in his life. Success and victory were. Perhaps it was fatigue, or perhaps an inner emptiness, but Jack decided to walk home and buy some cream liqueur along the way. Snowflakes fell on the streets of New York, bringing him a long-lost sense of peace. He noticed an unattended convenience store at the street corner, and just as he was about to buy alcohol and leave, a man dressed as a homeless person got into an argument with the clerk. The man was supposed to redeem a winning lottery ticket, but the clerk denied the previous promise of redemption due to the high prize amount. During the argument, the homeless man became agitated and pulled out a gun. Jack stepped forward and calmly reassured the man. His composure and courage surprised the homeless man, as he saw no fear or regret in Jack's eyes when faced with death. The homeless man eventually put down the gun, feeling frustrated with the clerk's dishonesty. "Come on, Jack, let's get out of here." Jack was quite puzzled as to how he knew his name, but he patiently advised him not to flaunt the gun and to seek help if needed. Used to helping others, Jack was now asked in return, "What help do you need?" Jack confidently replied, "I need nothing. I already have everything. This happiness is what I've earned through hard work." At that moment, the homeless man Cash made a decision. He wanted to give this successful man an unexpected life experience. "Hope you have sweet dreams, Jack. Merry Christmas." Jack found Cash's actions perplexing, and as he looked at the distant cross lights of the building, an unprecedented fatigue washed over him. That night, Jack did not seek pleasure, but silently went to bed quickly, and he slept exceptionally well. When Jack woke up from his dream, the morning sunlight made him feel comfortable. He was filled with questions. When did the penthouse in Manhattan have such sunlight? Why was there the sound of cartoons coming from home? Who was the woman lying beside him? Before he could sort out his thoughts, a son and a daughter jumped onto the bed. Jack could no longer bear the shock, quickly put on ill-fitting clothes, and rushed downstairs. At that moment, an elderly couple walked into the house, and Jack recalled their identities. Faced with an entirely unfamiliar environment, Jack borrowed his father-in-law's old car and rushed to the familiar city center. When he arrived at the former upscale apartment, he never expected that the usually friendly security would firmly refuse him entry, and the wealthy woman who often joked with him pretended not to know him. Jack thought this was a prank by everyone, unaware that his own panic and confusion were what others found most bizarre. With no other choice, Jack went to the company building, only to learn that the building was closed all day for Christmas, and his familiar position as general manager had long been replaced by his seemingly weak subordinate, Alan. Jack couldn't believe it. Was this a parallel world, a real dream, or an absurd prank? Until that familiar Ferrari stopped in front of him, and Cash inside the car smiled at him. Jack then realized that Cash was a being with magical abilities. Some called him an angel, others called him a fairy. Cash had originally intended to give the clerk a chance, but changed his mind due to Jack's courage in stepping forward. Jack's words, "I have everything," led him to decide to grant Jack an experience of a life redo, the duration and significance of which were unknown. Jack fell into extreme despair, wanting to return to his original life, not understanding how he ended up in such a situation. Cash ignored his anger and took out a ringing bell, informing him, "When the bell rings, it is a signal that the experience is over." The Ferrari drove away, and Jack still couldn't accept this absurd arrangement. He spent hours finding a residence on Mellison Street in New Jersey, a town adjacent to New York, which was the starting point of this experience. Guided by passers-by, he entered his friend Arnie's house. Jack resisted Arnie's enthusiasm from the bottom of his heart, unwilling to engage too much with this seemingly simple man. Arnie bluntly stated that after Jack left home in the morning, there was chaos at home, and everyone thought he had fallen into a low mood due to stress. Jack then realized that the wife beside him in the morning was Kate, whom he had parted ways with 13 years ago. Arnie thought his friend was just experiencing a midlife crisis, but Jack cautiously observed everything around him. Everything here felt incredibly unfamiliar. Eventually, Jack nervously returned to this strange home. The moment Kate saw him, she finally let go of her anxious heart. Looking at his wife's tear-red eyes and listening to her genuine complaints, Jack's prepared excuses all choked in his throat, and any explanation seemed pale and powerless. He stammered to recount the bizarre experience of the previous night, but Kate could not accept such strange words. Jack wanted to ring the bell to terminate the experience, but his daughter Annie happily took the bell away. "You missed Christmas! You missed the happiest smiles of the children!" This sentence softened Jack's heart. He silently apologized and followed Kate to the community Christmas gathering. Looking at the cheap clothes in the closet, Jack's face was full of disdain. His clothes had never been below 4 figures. The so-called party was just a small gathering at the Thompson family's home in the town, with cheap drinks and simple outfits, making Jack feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. He just wanted to drink to calm his emotions, and even in small talk, he couldn't find common topics, only pretending to enjoy and feigning compliments. When he learned that Kate was now a public interest lawyer, Jack was shocked. Why would a top student from law school choose such a poor and plain life? He still couldn't adapt to the household pets, and was even more disgusted by walking the dog late at night. To him, this behavior was a torturous waste of time. A day's fatigue only resulted in an old pajama, leaving Jack feeling helpless. Fortunately, when he woke up the next day, he was undisturbed, but the crying of the child completely shattered his fantasy of returning to his original life. He was still trapped in this family. Jack wanted Kate to take care of the crying child, but learned that it was his turn to look after the child that day. A Wall Street elite was utterly at a loss over the trivial matter of changing his son's diaper. His daughter Annie silently observed the awkward Jack and bluntly said, "You are not my father." Jack felt a sense of relief, finally having someone to confide in. Annie cares for her deeply loving father, and chooses to believe Jack's words, thinking that aliens have trapped him in her father's body. Jack is afraid of Annie being sad and crying, and he is more surprised by her maturity and calmness. At that moment, he feels that having such a daughter is not a bad thing. Sending her younger son to kindergarten and her older daughter to class, Annie gradually teaches Jack the skills of taking care of children and tells this alien that he will go to his father-in-law's tire company to do sales next. From Wall Street elite to tire salesman, Jack is filled with despair and unwillingness. He cannot understand why the bright future he rushed to London for has turned into what it is now. Fortunately, the tire shop is thriving, and he has his own office, but the messy office environment is still something he cannot tolerate. The walls are covered with children's doodles, and the nearly $1 million annual sales make Jack curious. How did this version of himself in this time and space manage to persist? He suddenly realizes that this Jack in this time and space never went to London, but chose to stay in New York to accompany his beloved Kate. The career ambition ingrained in his bones has never disappeared. Jack always pays attention to that merger case in the pharmaceutical industry. He cannot believe that the once timid Alan could land this business thanks to his wife's social connections. At this moment, Kate excitedly finds him. The children are asleep, and it is a warm moment for the couple to be alone. Jack still feels strange about everything in front of him and instinctively resists, but Kate's tenderness makes his heart flutter. Looking at the lover he missed out on back then, Jack can't help but admire her beauty. Kate suddenly feels a daze. Her husband's gaze seems as if he has never truly looked at her in the 13 years. This statement fills Jack with guilt. Kate wanted to be affectionate with him, but Jack falls asleep early, leaving her to lie down in disappointment. However, Jack does not fall asleep. He cannot face the choice he made 13 years ago, nor can he face the woman he has let down. The next day, the family goes shopping at the mall, and a morning of wandering makes Jack increasingly irritable. During a break, he spots a high-end suit brand he often buys, and after trying it on, Kate can't help but praise her husband's handsomeness. Jack instinctively wants to buy it, but the $2,400 price prompts Kate to quickly dissuade him. At this moment, Jack completely erupts. "I don't want to be woken up by a dog licking me in the morning. I don't want to change diapers, take kids to school. I don't want to walk the dog and take out the trash after working 8 hours. I don't want to live this boring life day after day. I should have been the richest man in the world. Why do you want me to give up that opportunity?" With each angry shout, Kate's heart gradually sinks. She finally confronts the strangeness brought by her husband, and the two end up parting unhappily. In the silence on the way back, Jack feels guilty and asks about how they ended up where they are now. Kate admits that the birth of their daughter Annie was unexpected, and with her father Old Ed's sudden heart attack, the couple ultimately decided to move back to New Jersey. In this time and space, Jack gave up his career on Wall Street and worked at his father-in-law's tire shop for 12 years. "Goodbye, Wall Street. My life is over just like this." Jack expressed his pain, a farewell to his career and a surrender of his life ideals. Kate understood his dissatisfaction, but also realized that there are no right or wrong choices in life. Once made, one must walk firmly down that path, as looking back is meaningless. Because of you and the children, this is the best outcome. Jack could never adapt to the mundane life. Even the bowling he once loved, he played poorly, leaving his friends puzzled as to why the champion of yesteryears seemed like a different person. During a break, Jack met the hostess of the Christmas party, Erin. If Kate was the most beautiful moonlight in town, Erin was the red rose in every man's heart, sexy, mature, and graceful. Jack sensed Erin's affection for him, and after some probing, learned that she hoped to have an inappropriate relationship with him. Jack secretly rejoiced, as if he had found his former self in the dull life, and proudly told his friend Arnie about it. Arnie hurriedly advised against it, believing that a married man's playful words were merely a spice of life, but crossing the line would lead to unbearable consequences. "Don't forget, you married the most beautiful Kate and have the enviable, happy family everyone admires." When the life Jack found distasteful became perfect in the eyes of others, Jack felt something different for the first time. Back home, a simple chocolate cake made the couple laugh and play. warmth spreading between them. Jack finally wanted to open his heart to this lover he hadn't seen for 13 years, but Kate insisted he say the sweet words of love. The unfamiliar Jack uttered disappointing words, and Kate left dejected. Late at night, Jack was filled with curiosity about his current self. He opened a dusty video and saw another version of himself preparing a love song for Kate's birthday, unabashedly expressing his love for his wife. This Jack was the most devoted and romantic husband in the eyes of the neighbors. From embarrassment to laughter, then to deep emotion, Jack realized that the other version of himself had given up his career, but accompanied Kate with all his love, a warmth that money could never provide. At that moment, he longed to return to the starting point, to accompany his beloved and spend every year together. Awakened again by the sweet smile of his child, Jack had become skilled at heating milk and brewing coffee with his eyes closed. Kate immediately took out a wedding anniversary gift. It wasn't a high-end brand, but the most expensive suit she could afford. Before Jack could feel touched, he realized from Kate's expectation that he had forgotten to prepare an anniversary gift. Seeing his wife's disappointment, Jack sought help from his daughter Annie and soon thought of the perfect gift. He took Kate to his favorite restaurant in New York, skillfully ordered delicious dishes, and, regardless of the onlookers, led Kate in a graceful dance. Tasting the familiar flavors, Jack decided to confess everything. He shared this bizarre life experience, stating that the Wall Street version of himself was the most confident and satisfied version. Kate never failed to understand his feelings. Everyone has regrets and disappointments in life, but the past is ultimately the past and is far less important than the reality before them. Kate's words untangled Jack's heart. He happily took Kate to the carefully prepared room, wanting to give his beloved an unforgettable anniversary. At that moment, Jack sincerely realized that for 13 years, he had never forgotten Kate and had always loved her. That night, the two connected emotionally, sharing warmth and tenderness. From then on, even the most ordinary tie could become a fun interaction between him and his son. Jack began to enjoy the simple family life, and his wife's love had never changed. During work, Jack encountered his former boss, Lacey. The career ambition that had been dormant for years was reignited. With his professional insights and accurate judgments, he amazed Lacey with the financial intuition of a tire salesman. Lacey recognized Jack's abilities once again. This career-minded man had never truly been buried. When the vehicle changed from a Ferrari to a Rolls-Royce, Jack returned to his former company. He found that Alan was still the family-loving employee, and the office was still cluttered. Lacey offered Jack a job opportunity, but he needed to prove to General Manager Alan that he was more than just a tire salesman. Jack understood that the core of business is not money, but people's hearts. He recounted the private information of partners, expressing his willingness to start from scratch and rebuild as a husband and father. In the end, Jack successfully persuaded Lacey and secured the new job. Alan couldn't believe that his former subordinate displayed such authority. Jack smiled. He saw a different Alan and recognized the other's work capabilities. When Kate learned that her husband had acquired a mansion and a new job, she was both surprised and saddened. Such a significant decision was made without consulting her, making her feel disrespected and undervalued. Moreover, city life was not suitable for the children's growth. Jack was very confused. Why was a man's pursuit of career success considered a fault? Must he choose between career and family? He hoped Kate would accept this hard-earned future to make up for the wrong choices of youth. "I want to live this life, but I don't want to bear the helplessness of not succeeding despite my efforts." This was a confusion Jack had never experienced before. Looking at the wall full of sweet photos, Jack silently gave up this hard-won job. The man who once regarded his career as everything ultimately chose family. At this moment, Kate pointed out to Jack that after their farewell at the airport, this version of Jack returned from London to New York the next day. She resisted Jack's return to the workplace because, in her vision, their small home in New Jersey was the paradise where they would grow old together. But now, with her husband yearning for a career, she chose to believe in and support him, simply because, "I love you, and the kids love you. That's enough." At that moment, Jack finally understood the meaning of this life experience. When Kate woke up, She knew that her beloved husband had truly returned. Annie also understood that the man in front of her was no longer a strange alien, but her loving father. When the bell rang, Jack felt a tightness in his chest. He saw Cash, whom he hadn't seen in a long time, at the convenience store. Cash noticed his change, but Jack no longer wanted to return to his old life. He had found a happiness he had never experienced before and did not want to lose it again. But the farewell eventually came. Jack looked at his sleeping younger son with eyes full of affection. He found his daughter Annie, hoping she would remember her alien father. Facing his beloved Kate, he confessed all the unusual things of the past few days, knowing that this beautiful dream would eventually end, hoping only that Kate could cherish this memory. He wanted to protect his loved one all night, but sleepiness still swept over him, and Jack finally closed his eyes. Jack woke up again, still on that Christmas day, with no joy of returning and no interest in the companion who had come and gone. He rushed to his home in New Jersey, but Kate was no longer there, and the house had changed owners. His secretary reminded him of an important meeting regarding the pharmaceutical merger, and Jack finally woke up from his dream. At the meeting, dressed in a sharp suit, he looked exhausted and slightly disheveled, leaving everyone puzzled. Alan's endless talk reminded him of another general manager from a different time, and Jack took the initiative to inform Alan of the solution. He hated being alone and successful, remembering Kate's message from years ago, and immediately found Kate's address. After many years of reunion, it was Kate's last day in New York. Now Kate was single and successful in her career, about to move to the Paris branch for development. Jack wanted to keep her for a cup of coffee, but Kate politely declined. "Let's meet again in Paris if there's a chance." This sentence left Jack with 1,000 words stuck in his throat. Kate kindly handed Jack some old belongings from back then. The items could be kept, but the memories were hard to replicate. Jack kept pondering the meaning of this experience. Was it ordinary happiness or lonely success? Perhaps it was neither. He should be that brave man who pursued love. The Ferrari once again weaved through the streets of New York, and Jack paid no attention to the parking ticket. This man, who always valued efficiency, only wanted to find Kate as soon as possible. He shouted Kate's name, turning this fantastical experience into the most sincere confession. "Do you know, I never left you back then. We got married and lived in New Jersey. We have a daughter named Annie, who is mature yet innocent. We also have a younger son who looks just like you. There are countless possibilities in life, but I chose the most selfish one. This time, I want to make a heartfelt choice. I just want to stop and have a cup of coffee with you." For some reason, Kate agreed. She was also curious about this old lover's bizarre experience. That night, the heavy snow continued to fall at the airport. That night, Jack found the long-lost peace in his heart. He finally faced the regret that had been buried deep in his heart for many years and said the long overdue, "I love you."